The air inside the Aylard Garden Estate Hall was electric. Glittering chandeliers bathed the opulent venue in warm light. Floral arrangements towered like sculptures, and over 300 guests whispered excitedly as violins played in the background. The groom's side wore coordinated gold lace, while the bride's people sat humbly in traditional maroon. Phones were out, live streams were running, and the photographers had already begun capturing what was expected to be the wedding of the year. Jasmine Okoye stood behind the double doors of the main ballroom, her heart pounding, palms sweaty. Her makeup was flawless, but her breath trembled. The satin train of her dress pooled like spilled milk at her feet as she clutched her father's hand. "Ready, baby," her father whispered gently, voice thick with pride. She nodded, blinking back tears, not of nerves, but of disbelief. Just moments earlier, Richard's best man, Lanray, had pulled her aside. "Jasmine, I'm sorry." Richard says, "The wedding's off." She'd stared at him, thinking it was a joke. "What are you talking about?" "It's the dowry. His mum said your family didn't fulfill the full list." Richard said he can't go against the elders. "The list changed 3 times," she snapped, stunned. "My father sold land. We borrowed money." "What are you even saying?" Lanray couldn't meet her eyes. "He says it's final. He's not coming out." She didn't cry, not right away. Her father, overhearing, had pulled her into a hug, whispering, "Let's go, Jasmine. We don't owe anyone here a damn thing." But she'd shaken her head. "No, Daddy, I need to say something." Now, as the double doors opened to reveal a packed hall, guests turned toward her in awe. Cameras clicked, but instead of smiling and walking to the altar, Jasmine walked past the aisle, right to the front of the stage where the officiant stood, confused. She grabbed the microphone from its stand. There was a stunned silence. "My name is Jasmine Okoye," she began, voice steady. "Some of you came today expecting to witness a celebration of love, but I've just been informed 5 minutes ago that my wedding is off. The groom, Richard Aylard, has backed out. Why? Because my family couldn't meet an impossible dowry his mother demanded." Gasps rippled through the hall, whispers, murmurs, phones raised. "I want you all to hear it from me. Not gossip, not blogs. Me. My family is not ashamed. We gave what we could, with honor. We weren't buying a man. We were building a future. And if that isn't enough for him or his family, I thank God I found out now and not later." Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't cry. "I won't be walking down the aisle today, but I will walk out of this place with my dignity." Then she placed the mic back on the stand, lifted her train, and turned. The entire hall remained frozen. No music, no cheers, just the sound of Jasmine's heels echoing against the marble as she walked out, head high. Outside, her father joined her in silence. Inside, the wedding of the year had become the scandal of the season. Jasmine Okoye had never known a life of ease. Her mother died when she was just 9, leaving her father to raise 2 children alone. Mr. Okoye was a proud, hard-working man, a retired civil servant who picked up side jobs after hours just to make sure Jasmine and her younger brother, Chuka, never went hungry. She remembered late nights when her father would come home smelling of car grease and photocopier toner. He worked as a part-time mechanic by day and helped run a local print shop in the evenings. From a young age, Jasmine carried a quiet, burning determination. She never wanted pity. She wanted progress. By the time she finished secondary school, she had already decided she would become a nurse, not just to escape poverty, but to serve with dignity. She earned a scholarship to study nursing, juggled classes with night shifts at a pharmacy, and still found time to help Chuka with his homework. When her first paycheck came through after graduation, she didn't buy a phone or clothes. She paid for Chuka's first semester in university. But no matter how much she achieved, she always felt the sting of silent judgment. At parties, at weddings, even in church, people smiled politely, but their eyes always asked, "Where's her mother? What does her father do again?" Ah, so they're just managing. That unspoken hierarchy followed her everywhere. Then she met Richard Aylard. It was at a medical fundraising gala. Jasmine was volunteering, passing around flyers and helping register donors. Richard was a guest speaker, a rising tech entrepreneur, known for flashy headlines and a designer watch collection. But when their eyes met, there was an ease between them. He was funny, charming, even shy. They talked about books, about service, about their dreams for healthcare in Nigeria. He told her he admired her drive, said she had something rare, and for a while, she believed him. Their relationship moved fast. Dinners turned into weekend getaways, and soon, he was introducing her to his circle. She saw the shift early on, the tight smiles from his mother, the passive-aggressive comments from his aunties. "Oh, you work night shifts? That must be hard." "Well, our Richard is very successful, Shah." At first, Richard defended her, but over time, Jasmine noticed the cracks. It was in the way he paused before introducing her to business partners, the way he flinched when she spoke pidgin on a phone call in front of his cousins, the way he asked, just once, if maybe her father didn't need to wear his native clothes to their family brunch. She tried to ignore it. She told herself love could conquer class. But deep down, something felt off. When he proposed, it was grand, a rooftop dinner, a violinist, a ring that cost more than her nursing school tuition. She said yes, and tears fell. But even in that moment, she noticed the way his mother clapped slowly from across the room, her smile tight as a thread pulled too hard. Then came the dowry list. At first, it was standard. Items for the traditional ceremony, yam tubers, crates of malt, kegs of palm oil. Mr. Okoye assured her they could manage. But just weeks later, Richard called with updates. "They've added more," he said lightly. "Jewelry for my mum, a car, and my uncle says your dad should cover the full venue rental." Jasmine had blinked. That wasn't the agreement. "They just want to see commitment, Jazz. It's cultural." But it wasn't culture. It was control. The list kept growing. Mr. Okoye, desperate not to embarrass his daughter, sold a plot of land he'd been saving for retirement. He borrowed money from friends he hadn't spoken to in years. He never complained, not once, but Jasmine could see the wear on his face. When she confronted Richard, he'd brushed it off. "My mum just wants what's fair. I mean, think about it. She's giving up her only son. Your dad should at least show appreciation." Appreciation. As if love had a price tag. As if Jasmine's years of struggle, sacrifice, and ambition were nothing compared to the currency of appearances. Still, Jasmine tried to stay hopeful. She buried her doubts beneath wedding planning, focused on logistics, smiled through bridal showers. She wanted to believe the man she loved still saw her, not her background. But in her quiet moments, she feared something had shifted in him, a silent agreement with his mother that Jasmine would always be less than. She didn't know it yet, but on the day of the wedding, that silent agreement would become a loud betrayal, one that would strip away everything she thought she knew about love, class, and dignity. A week before the wedding, the weight on Jasmine's chest was unbearable. Her father had just informed her that even after selling his second plot of land and borrowing from every friend and distant cousin he could find, they were still short 2 million naira, just under $2,000. It was a drop in the ocean compared to the wedding budget Richard's family was throwing around. But to the Okoyes, it was a mountain. She paced back and forth in her apartment, phone in hand, heart racing. Finally, she dialed Richard. He picked up on the third ring, voice smooth and unreadable. "Hey babe, what's up? We need to talk," Jasmine said, straight to the point. "Richard, this dowry thing, it's gotten out of hand." A pause. "Jazz, we've gone over this. It's just family tradition, nothing out of the ordinary." "No," she said, her voice cracking. "This isn't tradition. This is humiliation. My dad has given everything, Richard. He's sold land, taken loans. He's drained himself dry. We're still short by 2 million naira. And now your mum says without it, there won't be a blessing from the elders." Richard exhaled, slow and measured. "You're being dramatic. I'm being real," she fired back. "Is our marriage really hanging on 2 million naira? Is that what I'm worth to you?" Silence. Then he said, "It's not about that. It's about doing things the right way. My family has a reputation, Jasmine. These things matter. My mother says." "Exactly," she snapped. "Your mother says. Your mother decides. What about you, Richard? Don't I matter?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Let me call you back." He didn't. Not that night. Not the next morning. Jasmine cried alone in her room that weekend, her white wedding dress still hanging in the garment bag by the door, like a mocking ghost. On the day of the wedding, the venue was already full by noon. Guests had flown in from Lagos, Abuja, even the UK. It was the event of the season. Jasmine was in the dressing room, already in her gown, her father seated quietly beside her in his wine-coloured agbada, his eyes sunken but proud. He didn't say much. He'd already said everything, in the way he tightened her bracelet, the way he kissed her forehead, before the makeup artist arrived. A knock came. It was the best man, Richard's cousin, Io. He didn't meet her eyes. "Jasmine," he said stiffly, "I'm really sorry. Richard asked me to tell you, the wedding's off." The words hung in the air like smoke. Jasmine stared at him, unblinking. "Excuse me?" "It's the dowry," he mumbled. "The elders say the bride price wasn't fully paid. They can't bless the union. Richard, he's sorry, but it's final." Mr. Okoye stood up slowly. "He couldn't come tell her himself?" Io stepped back. "Please, I was only sent. I'm sorry." He walked out before they could speak again. Jasmine didn't cry. Not immediately. Her heart pounded, but her eyes stayed dry. She looked at her father, who looked older than ever, crushed and silent. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. She stood, straightened her dress, and without saying a word, she picked up her veil, walked past her stunned bridesmaids, and pushed open the door to the main hall. The music was still playing. The crowd was still laughing, sipping champagne, waiting for the bride to walk down the aisle. And then they saw her, walking alone, no groom beside her, no smile on her face. She walked to the center of the stage, lifted the microphone meant for the officiant, and faced hundreds of guests with the poise of a queen. "There won't be a wedding today," she said, voice clear and unshaking. "The groom has backed out, not because I cheated, not because I lied, but because my family couldn't afford to meet a dowry designed to break us." Gasps, murmurs, cameras rising. "My father gave everything he had, everything. But apparently love wasn't enough for the Alaids. Apparently a woman's worth can still be weighed in naira and gifts." She glanced at the front row, where Richard's mother sat frozen, lips parted in outrage. "Well," Jasmine continued, lifting her chin, "let the world know. I may not have riches, but I have pride. I have a name that was built on integrity, and I will not let this moment shame me. I will own it." She handed the microphone back to the stunned MC and turned around with quiet dignity. No tears, just silence. And then, unexpectedly, applause. Starting from the back, then spreading, hesitant at first, then fierce. People stood, cheered. Jasmine walked out, not as a broken bride, but as a woman reborn. By the time Jasmine reached home that night, the video had already spread like wildfire. Someone in the audience had captured the entire moment. Her poised walk, her calm voice, the thunderous applause. It was posted on Twitter with the caption, "This bride was told her wedding was cancelled because her family couldn't pay the dowry. What she did next, iconic." By morning, it had over 2 million views. Jasmine sat on her bed in silence, her phone buzzing non-stop. Messages poured in, from old classmates, colleagues, even strangers. Most praised her courage. "You're the voice we needed. You stood tall for every woman who's ever been made to feel small. You're a hero." But mixed in with the love were the critic. Some said she had embarrassed herself and her family. "You should have walked away in dignity, not made a scene." Tradition is tradition. No man wants a woman who challenges the elders publicly. Her WhatsApp family group was a battlefield. Cousins she hadn't heard from in years were suddenly experts on dowry culture. A distant aunt wrote, "You brought shame to your father. This is why girls should know their place." Her father, Mr. Okoye, hadn't said much since the wedding day. He moved quietly around the house, eating less, sleeping poorly. One evening, she found him sitting on the veranda, staring out at nothing. "I should have worked harder," he muttered. "Daddy," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "This wasn't your fault." But he didn't look at her. "I gave everything." And still, it wasn't enough. Jasmine's heart broke anew. Not for Richard, not even for herself, but for the man who'd broken his back, trying to give her a future. At work, things were tense. A few nurses tiptoed around her, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. Patients sometimes stared too long. Her supervisor called her in and gently suggested she take a few days off to rest and recalibrate. She agreed. It was during this break that she started therapy. A soft-spoken, middle-aged woman named Dr. Ijeoma, who didn't rush her or tell her to move on. Jasmine finally admitted the truth in one session. "I feel like I wasn't good enough. Not for Richard, not for the guests, not even for my own family." "You were more than enough," Dr. Ijeoma said. "They were just too small to see it." A few days later, a call came in from an unfamiliar number. "Hello," Jasmine answered, cautious. "Is this Jasmine Okoye?" "Yes? My name is Mrs. Bennett. I was at your wedding." Jasmine froze. I'm sorry, Ma. I didn't mean to cause any scene." "Oh, no. That was the most powerful thing I've ever witnessed," Mrs. Bennett said, her voice warm. "I'm the regional director for a private hospital group. We've been watching you for a while. Your reputation as a nurse, your professionalism. After what I saw that day, I'd like to offer you a new role. Better pay, better environment, leadership track." Jasmine blinked. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Mrs. Bennett chuckled. "You're the kind of woman we want on our team." And just like that, something shifted. Jasmine didn't post about it online. She didn't boast or seek validation. She simply began to rebuild, quietly, steadily. She started attending leadership trainings, mentoring junior nurses, and reconnecting with herself. She changed her number, deleted her Instagram, focused on healing, body, mind, and soul. Meanwhile, Richard's life was unraveling. His arrogant statement posted 3 days after the wedding only made things worse. Not everyone is cut out to be a wife. Some women mistake entitlement for empowerment. It backfired spectacularly. Twitter dragged him for filth. Brands pulled out of partnerships. His startup's main investor, a UK-based firm, released a statement distancing themselves from him. "We do not support misogynistic behavior or regressive cultural demands." Richard's office became a ghost town. By the second week, he had to lay off staff. He started drinking more. His apartment grew messier by the day, and even his close friends stopped picking his calls. One night, during a heated call with his mother, he screamed, "You made me look weak! You told me she wasn't good enough!" "You're the man," Mrs. Alade snapped. "You made your choice. You embarrassed me. Now the Alade name is a laughingstock. Do not call me again until you fix this." Click. Even she had started pulling away. His world, once all glitter and control, was caving in. He scrolled through the viral clip of Jasmine again and again, searching for some flaw, some proof that she'd staged it, exaggerated it. But all he saw was poise, grace, strength, the very things he once said he loved. And now she was rising, without him. Jasmine never responded to the media inquiries, never granted interviews, never clapped back. She didn't have to. Her silence was power. Her healing was her revenge. The sun poured through the tall auditorium windows as parents, students, teachers, and reporters filled the seats. Result day had never seen this much attention. Banners fluttered. A small red carpet led up to the stage. For once, the media cameras weren't here for the principal or the PTA president. They were here for Micah Parker. Alton stood quietly near the back wall, still in his faded uniform, freshly washed and pressed. He held nothing but a folded handkerchief and pride swelling in his chest. Tamia sat in the front row beside her brother, her inhaler close, her expression steady. Principal Hadley approached the microphone first, flanked by board members in polished suits. His smile was stiff. "Today," he began, "we celebrate academic excellence and inclusive education. Our school remains a shining example of nurturing talent from all walks of life." Alton raised an eyebrow. Hadley continued with general platitudes, naming sponsors and donors, offering polished praise for resilience and potential. But he never once mentioned Micah's name directly, until the National Award Committee representative finally stepped forward, her voice clear and firm. "And now," she said, "we proudly present this year's National Math and Innovation Award to one of the top 10 young minds in the country, Micah Parker." A ripple spread across the auditorium. Micah stood, buttoned his faded shirt, and walked up to the stage. He moved slowly, eyes meeting those who used to mock him. The whispers started again, but this time they carried awe. He took the mic. "Thank you," he began. "This award isn't just about math or science. It's about being seen." He looked over at Alton. "My dad cleaned these hallways so I could dream in them. He gave up everything so I could stand here. And for most of my life, people like him, and like me, were invisible in this building." He paused, then turned to the rows of teachers and PTA parents. "I was called trash boy, mop kid. I was ignored. I was told silently and loudly that I didn't belong here, that no matter how hard I worked, my place would always be in the background." A murmur rippled. "But I'm not here for revenge," Micah said. "I'm here because there are dozens of kids like me, kids who are brilliant, kind, and overlooked, because they don't wear designer clothes or sit in the front of fancy cars after school. He took a breath, then continued, firmer now. I submitted evidence of grade manipulation and neglect. I gave it to a journalist. It's all real. I have the logs, and I have the names. Gasps echoed across the room. And today, I'm saying their names, not to shame them, but to show what silence protects. Vice Principal Meadows, who altered record, Coach Dana, who ignored Tamia's medical need, Brittany Wallace, Kyle Benson, Logan Daniels, who bullied me relentlessly while staff looked the other way. The crowd tensed. Principal Hadley stood frozen. Dawn Taylor stepped forward from the aisle, raising her phone. "We're live," she whispered. "Keep going." Micah nodded. "But this story isn't just mine. Tamia stood beside me when no one else did, and she brought something with her today." Tamia stood slowly. Her hand trembled only slightly as she walked to the stage, handed Micah a small USB stick. He plugged it into the projector port on the podium laptop. The screen behind him flickered, and then played. The footage was grainy but clear. Logan tripping Micah, Brittany sneering, "Get back to your mop, Janitor Jr." Kyle throwing Micah's books into the trash. The entire auditorium went silent. Then came the sounds of laughter in the video, students egging them on. But in the crowd now, no one laughed. A father stood, jaw tight, recognizing his own son on screen. He walked out, dragging his boy behind him. Micah looked back to the crowd, his voice even. "All I ever wanted," he said, "was to be treated like I mattered. You taught me I didn't, until I proved I did." For a moment there was silence. Then Tamia clapped, then Alton, then the crowd, rising to their feet, roared in applause. Micah didn't smile. He just stood there, steady, as the sound washed over him. And in the corner, red-faced staff members avoided each other's eyes, the ones who stayed silent too long. 6 months after the gala, Jasmine stood under the open sky, watching a group of teenage girls gather for a workshop beneath a wide, flowering canopy. The building behind them bore the name the Okoye Foundation for Women's Health, her latest venture. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't funded by billionaires, but it was hers. A grassroots NGO dedicated to educating and supporting young women from low-income families on health, hygiene, and self-worth. The seed money had come from a global women's leadership grant she received after her viral speech. But the real investment came from years of quiet struggle, the nights she spent studying by candlelight, the sacrifices her father made, the pain she endured when love failed her publicly. Now, she was pouring that strength back into her community. At the end of the workshop, Jasmine handed out supplies with a gentle smile. The girls looked at her not just with admiration, but with hope, the kind of hope she had once needed herself. Her father, Mr. Okoye, stood at the sidelines, wearing a crisp shirt and holding a stack of pamphlets. His back was a little straighter these days. The shame he once carried over not being able to provide enough for his daughter's dowry had melted into pride. He walked beside her now at events and board meetings, introduced by Jasmine as her first and greatest example of perseverance. People greeted him with respect, not because of his bank account, but because of the daughter he raised. As for Jasmine's personal life, it was quiet, private. She'd met someone recently, Daniel, a widowed doctor with 2 young daughters and a calm way of listening. They met at the clinic where she volunteered on weekends. He never asked about her past in a way that probed. Only when she shared, he listened without judgment. He admired how she spoke up for others, how she never let bitterness seep into her voice. And she admired his patience, his simplicity, the absence of performance. They were taking it slow. No lavish gestures, no spotlight, just dinner, conversation, respect. Meanwhile, Richard Alade's life was unraveling. After the gala incident, his already troubled startup lost its last round of funding. When an investor discovered discrepancies in the company's financial reports, including inflated user metrics and a falsified partnership deal, a lawsuit followed. News spread quickly. The same blogs that once celebrated his young mogul rise now dissected his fall from grace. His company filed for bankruptcy within 3 months. Mrs. Alade, desperate to salvage the family name, began selling off properties quietly. Their once grand house in Victoria Island went up for sale. Friends stopped calling. Invitations stopped arriving. The same society that once bowed to her status now whispered behind closed doors. Richard tried to stage a comeback, consulting, mentoring, even offering TEDx talks on failure and growth. But the public wasn't interested in a redemption arc that hadn't been earned. Jasmine, on the other hand, didn't seek revenge. She never spoke his name again in public. She didn't need to. Her story of rejection turned into resilience, of dignity over desperation, had spoken loud enough. In one interview, when asked if she would ever consider reconciling with those who doubted her worth, Jasmine smiled and said, "I don't hold grudges, but I've learned to stop opening doors that led me to cages." And with that, she returned to her work, steady, purposeful, and far from the noise. Jasmine had become a new kind of role model, not the one who marries into wealth, but the one who creates her own. Not the one who is chosen, but the one who chooses. And that, in the eyes of many, was the greatest victory of all. Jasmine stood by the doorway of the clinic, her arms folded gently across her chest as she watched the scene unfold inside. A young girl, no more than 11, sat nervously on the examination table, while a nurse reassured her with a warm tone. The girl's school uniform was slightly faded, but she sat upright, her back straight, eyes wide with both curiosity and pride. It reminded Jasmine of herself, years ago, walking barefoot to school, books tied with a rubber band, her mother's voice echoing in her mind. "Your strength doesn't need noise. Let them see it when you rise." The girl's mother stood by the door, wringing her hands in quiet gratitude. This was their first visit to the clinic. They had been turned away from a government hospital for not having a referral. But here, no referrals were needed. Just need. Just dignity. Jasmine stepped forward, offering the woman a bottle of water and a gentle nod. No cameras, no applause. Just people helping people. That was how she wanted it. The hallway was filled with quiet motion, nurses moving efficiently, posters on menstrual hygiene and mental health in bold colours, and the faint hum of hope in the air. She turned slightly toward the open window, where the sun was beginning to set behind the mango trees. The gold light caught on the chain around her neck. She reached up and touched the pendant, a worn gold locket shaped like a tear, passed down from her mother before she died. Inside, it was a photo of Jasmine as a child, sitting on her father's lap. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the weight of it settle against her skin, not heavy, but grounding. With a small, knowing smile, she whispered to no one in particular, "I was never too little. They were just too blind." She opened her eyes, her gaze settling back on the clinic. The little girl was laughing now. The nurse had given her a lollipop. Jasmine turned and walked down the corridor, steady and quiet, the kind of quiet that comes not from silence, but from peace. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.